The space station called Bright Horizon floated silently in the darkness between stars. It was a place where many different alien species came together to learn, trade, and work. Park stood at the window of her small room and looked out at the endless black sky filled with distant lights. She was far from home, very far from the busy streets of where she had once taught children to read and write. Was 28 years old. She had brown eyes that always looked kind, and she wore her black hair in a simple ponytail. In her pocket, she carried a small plush toy that her grandmother had given her before she died. It was a little cat with button eyes. Touched it now for comfort as she prepared for her first day of teaching on the station. She had joined the Galactic Exchange Program 6 months after Earth made first contact with alien life. The whole world had changed in those strange months. Remembered watching the news, seeing the massive ships descend from the clouds. She remembered the fear that had gripped everyone. But then came the talks, the treaties, and slowly, the understanding that humans were not alone. Wanted to be part of this new universe. She wanted to see things no human had ever seen. She wanted to teach children who had never met a human before. So she applied to the program, passed all the tests, and now here she was, floating in space, about to meet her new students. A chime sounded at her door, took a deep breath and opened it. Standing in the hallway was a creature that looked like a large insect. It had 6 legs, 2 of which it used as arms, and a head with many eyes that blinked in different patterns. This was Clicks, the station administrator. Had met him briefly when she arrived. "Miss Park," Clicks said in a voice that sounded like crackling static, "I must speak with you. There has been a change." Felt her stomach drop. A change? What kind of change? Clicks made a sound that might have been a sigh. "Please, come with me to my office. It is easier to explain there." They walked through the curved hallways of the station. Other aliens passed them, some walking, some floating, some crawling along the walls. Tried not to stare. She was still getting used to all of this. In the administrator's office, Clicks settled behind a desk covered with holographic screens. He waved his front legs and the screens flickered. "Miss Park, I will be honest with you. We have a problem, a very big problem." "What is it?" asked. "Do you know of the—" Thought for a moment. She had studied the major species before coming here. "Wolf-like aliens," she said slowly. "Very large, very fierce warriors." "Yes," Clicks said. "They are one of the most feared species in the galaxy. Their warriors have conquered entire systems. They value strength, honor, and combat above all things." "And what does this have to do with me?" Clicks made that sighing sound again. "The ambassador has 5 children, cubs they call them. He wants them to receive education while he conducts business on this station. We assigned tutors to them, 3 tutors in fact." 3. All 3 have quit. The first lasted 4 days. The second lasted 2. The third left after 6 hours and refused to speak about what happened. Stared at him. "You want me to teach these cubs?" "I am asking you, Miss Park. Begging, really. No one else will take the position. The ambassador is becoming angry. If his children do not receive proper education, he may end the trade negotiations. Those negotiations are very important to this station." Thought about her grandmother. The old woman had always said that the most difficult students were the ones who needed the most love. She had taught that patience was stronger than anger, and kindness was stronger than fear. "How old are these cubs?" asked. "The eldest is 12 cycles, the youngest is 5. "Children," said softly. "They are just children." "They are children," Clicks warned. "They have claws, they have teeth. They are being trained as warriors even at this young age." Touched the little plush cat in her pocket. "I will try," she said. "Take me to them." The classroom was in the diplomatic wing of the station. It was a large room with high ceilings and reinforced walls. Noticed the claw marks on the floor and the dents in the metal tables. She swallowed hard but did not let her fear show on her face. She heard them before she saw them. growling, snapping, the sound of things being knocked over. Then the door opened, and saw the cubs for the first time. They were beautiful in a terrifying way. They looked like wolves that had learned to stand on two legs. Their fur was silver and gray, their eyes were gold like fire, and their claws clicked against the floor as they moved. The tallest one stood almost as high as. The smallest one was about the size of a human child, with soft fur and paws that seemed too big for his body. All five of them turned to look at her. The tallest one spoke first. His voice was deep for someone so young. "Another one," he said. "How long do you think this one will last?" The female next to him showed her teeth in what might have been a smile. "I say 1 hour, maybe less." The cubs began to circle. They moved like hunters. The middle boy, with a scar on his ear, knocked over a chair just to see if she would jump. The quiet female with the darkest fur watched her with unblinking eyes, and the smallest one, the baby, tried his best to look fierce, but could see that his legs were trembling. "I am," she said calmly. "I will be your teacher." The eldest cub laughed. It was not a nice sound. "You are small, you are soft, you have no claws, no fangs. Why should we listen to you?" Did not answer right away. Instead, she walked to the center of the room and sat down on the floor. The cubs stopped circling, confused. This was not what the other tutors had done. The other tutors had tried to command them, to shout at them, to threaten them. Reached into her bag and pulled out a container. She opened it, and a rich, spicy smell filled the room. "Before I left Earth," she said, "I learned about food. I made these myself, spiced meat strips. They are not as good as what your people make, but I tried my best." She placed the container on the floor in front of her and waited. The cubs did not move. They stared at her like she was crazy. Then the smallest one, the baby with the trembling legs, took a step forward. The eldest cub growled a warning, but the little one ignored him. He walked slowly toward, his nose twitching as he smelled the food. He stopped in front of her. His golden eyes looked into her brown ones. "You made food for us?" he asked in a small voice. "Yes," said I did. The little cub reached out a paw and took one of the meat strips. He sniffed it carefully, then took a bite. His ears perked up. He took another bite, bigger this time. "It is good," he said, sounding surprised. "It is really good." The eldest cub did not respond. He was watching with a new expression on his face. It was not anger anymore. It was something closer to confusion. The female named spoke. "Why are you not afraid of us? Everyone is afraid of us." Looked at each of the cubs in turn. The proud eldest, the fierce sister, the trickster with the ear, the quiet watcher, and the little one who was now eating his third meat strip. "I was a teacher on Earth," said. "I taught children who were very different from me. Some were angry, some were sad. Some broke things and shouted and tried to make me go away. But I never left. I stayed because they needed someone to stay." She smiled at them, and it was a real smile full of warmth. "I am not here to control you. I am not here to make you obey. I am here to teach you. There is a difference." The room was silent. The little cub climbed into his lap without asking permission. He was warm and heavy, and his fur was softer than she had expected. He looked up at her with his big golden eyes. "What is your name, little one?" asked. He said, "I am." "It is nice to meet you." Watched this with narrowed eyes. His claws were still out. His body was still tense. But for the first time in a long time, he did not growl. Perhaps this human was different. Perhaps she would stay. 3 weeks passed on the Bright Horizon station and did not leave. She came to the classroom every morning. She stayed until every lesson was done. And slowly, something began to change. Learned quickly that cubs could not sit still. Their bodies were made for running, hunting, and fighting. Asking them to sit in chairs and listen to lectures was like asking a river to stop flowing. It simply would not work. So changed everything. Mathematics became a game of strategy. She drew battle maps on the floor and asked the cubs to calculate distances, angles, and supply routes. Who had called math useless, suddenly became interested when he realized it could help win wars. History became stories told in the dark, would dim the lights and project images of ancient battles, great heroes, and fallen empires. She told them about Earth's history too, about warriors like the Spartans and generals like Yi Sun Sin. The cubs listened with their mouths open, amazed that such a soft species had produced such fierce fighters. Language studies became competitions. Whoever learned the most words in a day won a prize. Who was competitive about everything, threw herself into these challenges. She wanted to win so badly that she started studying even after class ended. The trickster with the ear still played pranks, but his pranks changed. He stopped trying to scare and started pranking other people on the station. He would hide the administrator's favorite stylus, rearrange the cafeteria chairs, or reprogram the cleaning robots to dance instead of clean. Then he would run back to and tell her everything, his eyes bright with mischief. Pretended to be stern. That is not nice behavior. But she could not hide her smile and knew it. The quiet one with the dark fur was the hardest to reach. She rarely spoke. She sat in the corner and watched everything with her sharp golden eyes, did not push her. She simply included in everything and waited. One morning, found a small blue stone on her desk. It was smooth and shiny, polished by unknown waters on some distant world. She looked up and saw watching her from across the room. "It is pretty," said. "Thank you." His ears twitched. She looked away quickly, but saw the hint of happiness on her face. After that, there were more gifts. A data chip containing beautiful alien music, a dried flower that smelled like honey and rain, a drawing of the classroom with standing in the middle, surrounded by 5 cubs, kept every single gift in a special box in her room. And then there was. The youngest cub had attached himself to like a shadow. He sat next to her during lessons. He held her hand when they walked through the station. He fell asleep in her lap during story time, his small body warm and his breathing soft. One day, when was half asleep, he mumbled something that made his heart stop. "Mother," he said, then his eyes snapped open and he looked scared. I did not say." Pulled him closer and stroked his soft fur. "It is okay, you can call me whatever you want." Buried his face in her shoulder. She felt his small body relax. From across the room, watched. He said nothing, but something shifted in his golden eyes. Was the hardest of all. He was the eldest, the one who would someday lead. He felt responsible for his siblings and he did not trust easily. For the first 2 weeks he kept his distance from. He followed her rules, but he did not engage. He did not laugh at her jokes or ask questions about Earth. But he started walking her to the classroom every morning. "The hallways are not safe," he said when asked why. "There are many species here. Some of them do not like humans." Did not argue. She let him walk beside her, his tall form casting a shadow over her small one. She noticed how his eyes moved constantly, checking every corridor, every doorway. He was protecting her, even though he would never admit it. One evening, after the other cubs had gone to dinner, stayed behind. He stood by the window, looking out at the stars. He said without turning around, "Why do you stay?" "Because this is my job," said. No, turned to face her. "The others stayed because it was their job too, but they left. Why are you different?" Thought for a long moment. Then she walked over and stood beside him, looking out at the same stars. "On Earth," she said, "I had students who were very difficult. They came from hard lives. Their parents were gone or did not care. They were angry at the world. They pushed everyone away because they were afraid of being hurt." She looked up but I learned something important. The students who push the hardest are the ones who need the most. They are testing you. They want to know if you will leave like everyone else." Was silent. "You and your siblings tested me," continued. "You growled and circled and tried to scare me. You wanted to know if I would run, but I did not run. And now you are confused because you do not know what to do with someone who stays. For a long time did not speak. Then very quietly he said, Our mother died when was born. It is common among. Many mothers do not survive the youngest cub. His heart ached. I am sorry. Our father loves us, but he is an ambassador. He has duties. He cannot always be with us. So I take care of them. I am their eldest. It is my job to protect them. He looked at and for the first time she saw the weight he carried. He was only 12, just a child himself, but he had been forced to grow up too fast. You do a good job, said softly. They are lucky to have you. Blinked, no one had ever told him that before. A week later, something happened that changed everything. Was in the middle of a lesson about galactic geography when the classroom door opened. She looked up, expecting to see Administrator Clicks or perhaps a station worker. Instead, she saw a so large that he had to duck to enter the room. He was 3 meters tall. His fur was silver with streaks of white, and his body was covered in scars from countless battles. His eyes were the same gold as his children's, but deeper, older, filled with things could not understand. This was Ambassador Wu, father of the cubs. The children jumped to their feet, even stood, ran to his father and hugged his massive leg. Father cried, You came to see us. The ambassador patted his youngest son's head, but his eyes were on. He studied her with an intensity that made her want to look away. But she did not. She met his gaze and held it. Continue your lesson, the ambassador said. His voice was deep like thunder. I wish to observe. Nodded. Her hands were shaking slightly, but she forced herself to stay calm. She continued teaching, showing the cubs the different sectors of the galaxy, the trade routes, the neutral zones. The cubs were different with their father watching. They sat. They answered questions quickly and correctly. They wanted to make him proud. When the lesson ended, the ambassador stood. He walked toward, each step making the floor vibrate slightly. He stopped in front of her, and she had to tilt her head back to look at his face. You have done what warriors could not, he said. You have reached them. Bowed her head slightly, as she had seen do when showing respect. They reached me first, ambassador. I just stayed long enough to notice. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the ambassador bowed his head in return. This was a gesture of deep respect, given only to those who had proven themselves worthy. Felt tears prick her eyes, but she blinked them away. That night the cubs gathered in the classroom after their father had gone. They stood in a circle, their faces serious. We have decided something, announced, all of us together. Looked at them confused. What have you decided? Stepped forward. Among our people, when someone proves they are worthy of the pack, they are given an honor name, a name that shows their true spirit. Grinned, we voted, even voted yes. Spoke, her voice soft but clear. We name you Sarai, it means gentle voice in our language. Bounced on his paws. You are Sarai now, it is official. Stared at them, her vision blurred with tears. This has never happened before, said quietly. No human has ever been named by young. You are the first. Fell to her knees and opened her arms. All 5 cubs rushed into her embrace, even proud. They held each other in the dim light of the classroom, a human woman and 5 wolf children who had become something more than student and teacher. They had become family. 6 weeks had passed since first met the cubs. The classroom that had once been a place of chaos was now filled with learning and laughter, had found her place on the bright horizon station. She had found her pack. But darkness was coming. The first sign was the ship that appeared outside the station windows. It was long and black, shaped like a blade, and it moved through space like a predator hunting prey. Saw it during her morning walk to the classroom, and something about it made her stomach feel cold. What ship is that? She asked, who was walking beside her as usual. His eyes narrowed. he said, and the word sounded like a curse. They are here for trade negotiations. Reptile people, cold-blooded in more ways than one. Sfur bristled. My father does not like them. No one does, but they have resources that the station needs, so we must tolerate their presence. Nodded and tried to forget about the black ship. She had lessons to teach. But they did not let themselves be forgotten. She saw them for the first time in the station's main hall. They were tall, taller than humans, but shorter than. Their skin was covered in green and gray scales, and their eyes were yellow with thin black slits. They moved smoothly, almost silently, and when they spoke, their voices hissed like steam escaping a pipe. Their leader was the worst of all. His name was Scales, though suspected this was not his real name. He was larger than the other, with darker scales and eyes that seemed to see everything. When past him in the hallway, he stopped and stared at her. A human, he said slowly. His tongue flicked out to taste the air. How interesting. I have heard much about your species. Forced herself to smile politely. Welcome to Bright Horizon. I hope your negotiations go well. She tried to walk past him, but he moved to block her path. Not obviously, not in a way she could complain about, just enough to make her uncomfortable. You are a teacher, yes, Scales asked. Teaching the young, such a soft creature caring for such fierce beasts, it is almost amusing. Did not like his smile. There was something hungry in it. The cubs are wonderful students, she said carefully. If you will excuse me, I have a class to prepare. Scales stepped aside, but as she passed, he spoke again. We will meet again, human. I am certain of it. Walked away as fast as she could without running. Her heart was pounding in her chest. In the days that followed, began to notice things. They seemed to be everywhere. In the cafeteria when she ate breakfast. In the hallways when she walked to class. In the observation deck when she watched the stars at night. And Scales was always watching. He never did anything wrong, not exactly. He never touched her or threatened her with words. But he was always there at the edge of her vision, his yellow eyes following her movements. He would smile when she looked at him, a cold smile that made her skin crawl. Tried to tell herself she was being paranoid. The station was not that big. Of course she would see the same people over and over. It meant nothing. But her body knew the truth. She started walking faster through the hallways. She avoided being alone. She jumped at sudden sounds. The cubs noticed. You are different, said one morning as they walked to class. You are afraid. Forced a laugh. I am fine, just tired. You are lying. His golden eyes burned with intensity. You taught us that lies poison trust, do not poison ours. Stopped walking. She looked at this 12-year-old cub who had grown so much in the weeks she had known him. He was no longer the hostile boy who had tried to scare her away. He was her protector now, her eldest, and he deserved the truth. There is she said quietly, their leader. He makes me uncomfortable. He watches me constantly. I feel like prey. His fur rose along his spine, his claws extended, scratching the metal floor. Which one? Show me which one. It is probably nothing, said quickly. I am just being silly. He has not done anything wrong. Show me, repeated, and his voice was no longer the voice of a child. Did not have to show him. At that moment, Scales appeared at the end of the hallway. He saw and smiled his cold smile. Then he saw standing beside her, and his smile flickered for just a moment. Ah, the human teacher and her pet beast, Scales said, walking closer. How touching. Growled low in his throat. I am no one's pet snake. Scales laughed, a hissing sound. Such fire in one so young, your father must be proud. He looked at again, and his eyes lingered too long. I will see you later, human. I look forward to knowing you better. He walked away, his tail swishing behind him. Watched him go with murder in his eyes. I do not like him. Neither do I, admitted. That night the cubs held a secret meeting. Did not know about it. She was in her room, trying to sleep but seeing yellow eyes every time she closed her own. In the dark classroom, 5 young sat in a circle. "Something is wrong," said. "Sorai is scared, I can smell it on her." The leader said, "He watches her like a hunter watches prey. I saw it today." His ears flattened against his head. "What does he want with her?" Spoke her quiet voice cutting through the darkness. "They are known for taking people. Slavery is legal in some parts of the galaxy. Humans are rare, they are valuable." The word hung in the air like poison. Small voice trembled. "They want to take Mother away." "They will not," said, and his voice was iron. "We will not let them." "But what can we do?" asked. "We are cubs. He is an adult, a leader of his people. He has diplomatic immunity. The station cannot touch him unless he breaks a law." "Then we watch," said. "We gather information. We learn his patterns, his weaknesses, and if he tries to hurt her, we will be ready." The cubs nodded in the darkness. They were young, but they had been trained for war since they could walk, and now they had something worth fighting for. 2 days later, Scales made his move. Was walking to the cafeteria alone. She had told the cubs to stay in the classroom and finish their work. She did not want them to see how scared she was. She did not want to burden them with her problems. It was a mistake. Scales appeared from a side corridor, blocking her path. This time, there was no pretense of politeness. His smile was sharp as a knife. "Human," he said, "we need to talk." "I have nothing to say to you," tried to walk around him. He grabbed her arm. His grip was cold and strong, and his claws pressed against her skin without quite breaking it. "You misunderstand," he hissed. "I was not asking." His heart was pounding so hard she could hear it. "Let me go. There are cameras everywhere. People will see." "Will they?" Scales laughed softly. "I have friends on this station. Friends who can make cameras look the other way. Friends who can lose incident reports. You are alone, human, more alone than you know." He leaned closer, and his breath was cold on her face. "You would bring a good price in certain markets. Exotic, rare, soft." He said the last word like it was delicious. "I have been patient. I have watched and waited, but my ship leaves in 3 days and you will be on it." "The will notice," whispered. "The ambassador will notice." "The ambassador is busy with negotiations. His children are just cubs. What can they do?" Scales laughed again. "Nothing. The answer is nothing." He released her arm and stepped back. "I will see you soon, human, very soon." Then he was gone, disappearing into the shadows as silently as he had come. Stood alone in the hallway, shaking. She looked around desperately, hoping someone had seen, but the corridor was empty. She did not see watching from behind a pillar, her golden eyes burning with cold fury. She did not see turn and run back to the classroom, faster than she had ever run before. She did not hear the growls of rage that filled the classroom when told her siblings what she had witnessed. And she did not know that in that moment, 5 young declared war. The classroom had changed. Where there had once been desks and learning materials, there were now star maps, tactical displays, and communication equipment. The cubs had worked through the night, transforming their place of learning into something else entirely. A war chamber stood at the center, pointing at a holographic map of the station. "They are staying in the diplomatic wing, Section 7. They have 4 guards and 12 crew members on the station at all times. The rest stay on their ship." Traced a claw along the map. "I have walked every corridor in that section. There are 2 main exits and 4 emergency vents. The vents are small but could fit through them." Puffed up his chest proudly. He was scared, but he would not show it. "I have been practicing. I can move very quietly." Grinned, his eyes gleaming with mischief. "I have access to the station's communication system. Do not ask how. If we need to cause confusion, I can make alarms go off anywhere. I can also jam their signals so they cannot call for help." Laid out a series of data pads. I have been tracking them for days. I know when they eat, when they sleep, when they patrol. Their leader, Scales, follows a strict schedule. He will make his move tomorrow night. How do you know? Asked. He has invited Sorai to a private dinner. Cultural exchange, he calls it. The invitation came through official channels. She cannot refuse without causing a diplomatic incident. The cubs fell silent. They knew what that dinner really was. It was a trap. Does No? Asked. Nodded. She told me about it this morning. She tried to sound calm, but I could smell her fear. She is going to go. She thinks she has no choice. Slammed his fist against the table, making the holograms flicker. Then we will be there. When he tries to take her, we will stop him. But how? Asked. He has guards, he has weapons, we are just cubs. We are cubs, said fiercely. Our ancestors conquered star systems before these snakes learned to crawl. We will find a way. The door to the classroom opened. All 5 cubs spun around, claws out, ready to fight. Ambassador Wu stood in the doorway. For a terrible moment, no one moved. The cubs expected anger, punishment, orders to stop their foolish planning. Their father was a diplomat. He would not approve of his children preparing for battle. But the ambassador did not speak. He walked into the room, his massive form making the space feel small. He looked at the star maps, the tactical displays, the communication equipment. He looked at his children, standing in formation like soldiers. Then he spoke, and his voice was quiet. Your formations are sloppy. Let me show you how warriors plan. The cubs stared at him in shock. Father whispered. Ambassador Wu knelt beside the holographic map. The vents are a good idea, but you have not accounted for the heat sensors. Here. He pointed to a junction in the ventilation system. This is the weak point. The sensors malfunction near the cooling units, can enter here unseen. He looked at his youngest son. Can you do this, little one? Straightened his spine. Yes, father, I can do it. The ambassador nodded and turned to the others. Your corridor mapping is good, but you missed a service tunnel behind Section 7. It connects to the kitchen storage. If you need a surprise entrance, use that. His eyes widened. I did not know about that tunnel. Few do. That is why it is useful. The ambassador looked at. Your communication skills are impressive, but jamming their signals will alert them that something is wrong. Instead, I want you to loop their internal communications. Make them hear only what we want them to hear. Nodded eagerly, his tail wagging despite the serious situation. Finally, the ambassador looked at. Your intelligence work is excellent. You would make a fine strategist someday, but you have forgotten something important. Tilted her head. What, father? You have forgotten to inform the pack leader of the threat. He smiled, and it was a warm smile despite his fierce face. I am still your father, little one. When my cubs plan for war, I expect to be included. For a moment, the cubs did not know what to do, then ran forward and hugged his father's leg, just as he always did. Followed, then. Even, proud, allowed himself to be pulled into the embrace. I am proud of you, the ambassador said quietly. All of you. You saw a threat to your pack and you prepared to face it. That is what do. Will you help us, father? Asked. I will do more than help. The ambassador's eyes hardened. I will stand with you. To think they can take what is ours because we are bound by diplomatic rules. They are about to learn that some rules mean nothing when pack is threatened. The next night walked toward the diplomatic wing with heavy steps. She wore a simple blue dress, the nicest thing she owned. She had tried to tell herself that everything would be fine, that the dinner was just dinner, that her fears were unfounded. But she knew the truth. She had seen it in Scales's yellow eyes. She reached the private dining room and found it empty except for Scales and a single table set for 2. The door closed behind her with a soft click. Welcome, human, Scales said smoothly. Please sit. Sat, her hands were trembling under the table. Scales poured 2 glasses of something dark and purple. I must say I am pleased you accepted my invitation. I was worried you might decline. It would have been rude to refuse a diplomatic request, said, her voice steady despite her fear. Yes, rude, Scales smiled, showing rows of small, sharp teeth. You humans care so much about being polite. It is one of your many charming qualities. He stood and walked around the table, standing behind's chair. She could feel the cold radiating from his scaled body. Let us stop pretending, he hissed in her ear. You know why you are here, I know why you are here. When my ship leaves tomorrow, you will be on it. There is no escape, no rescue, no one who cares enough to save you. Closed her eyes. The cubs will notice I am gone. The ambassador will. The ambassador is at a dinner meeting of his own, a meeting arranged by my associates. He will not return for hours. Scales laughed softly. And the cubs, they are children. What can children do against the power of the syndicate? He reached down and grabbed shoulder, his claws pressing into her flesh. Now stand, we are leaving. Reached for the emergency button on her wrist. Every exchange teacher had one. It would send a signal to station security. She pressed it. Nothing happened. We jammed your little device hours ago, Scales hissed. I told you, human, you are alone. The door exploded inward. Not opened, exploded. Standing in the smoking doorway was a cub, silver fur bristling, golden eyes blazing with fury. Behind him stood, fangs bared, claws extended. Appeared from a side entrance, grinning with a communicator in his paw. Emerged from the shadows, data pad in hand. And from a vent in the ceiling, dropped down, landing on the table, holding an armful of weapons. You will release our Sarai, said, and his voice was no longer the voice of a child. It was the voice of a warrior. Or you will learn why the galaxy fears the... Scales laughed, though there was uncertainty in his yellow eyes. You are children, you cannot. He did not finish the sentence. Moved faster than the eye could follow. In one heartbeat she crossed the room. In the next she had Scales pinned against the wall, her claws at his throat. She taught us that words solve problems, growled. But she also taught us that some beings do not deserve words. Guards burst into the room from another entrance, reaching for their weapons. But their weapons were not there. Looking for these, called from the table, waving the blasters. I took them. You should really guard your armory better. The guards hesitated, confused and afraid. Stepped forward, her data pad broadcasting on all frequencies. I have transmitted evidence of your attempted kidnapping to Galactic Enforcement, the Human Embassy, and 17 news networks. Your diplomatic immunity is void. Your ship has been locked in the docking bay. There is no escape. The dining room door opened again, and this time, Ambassador Wu entered. He was wearing full battle armor, and behind him stood a squad of warriors, the personal guard that traveled with every ambassador of their people. Scales's face went pale beneath his scales. Ambassador, he hissed, this is a misunderstanding. The human and I were simply... Silence. The ambassador's voice was thunder. I have heard enough of your lies to last a lifetime. You threatened a member of my pack. You tried to steal what belongs to, and you thought you would succeed because we were bound by rules. He stepped closer, his massive form towering over the trembling. There are no rules when pack is threatened. There is only blood. Scales fell to his knees. Please, I will leave. I will never return, just let me. You will face justice, the ambassador said. Galactic Enforcement is already on their way. You and your crew will answer for your crimes. He looked at his warriors. Take them. The warriors moved with practiced efficiency, restraining and escorting them from the room. And then it was over. Sat at the table shaking. She could not process what had just happened. One moment she had been certain she would disappear forever. The next, she was surrounded by the cubs, all of them pressing close, whimpering and nuzzling her. Are you hurt? Demanded. Did he hurt you? No, whispered. No, I am fine, I am. She could not finish. The tears came, sudden and unstoppable. She gathered the cubs into her arms, all 5 of them, and held them as tightly as she could. You saved me, she sobbed. You foolish, wonderful, brave children, you saved me. Buried his face in her neck. We would never let them take you, mother, never ever. Fierce, who never cried, had tears running down her fur. You are our Sarai, our gentle voice. We protect what is ours. Was trying to grin, but his lips were trembling. Also, it was really fun. Did you see their faces when dropped from the ceiling? Even in the middle of her tears, laughed. Ambassador Wu watched his children and the human woman they had claimed as their own. He remembered his mate, lost so many years ago. He remembered raising these cubs alone, trying to be both father and mother, always afraid he was failing them. But looking at them now, holding this small, soft human who had somehow become the heart of their pack, he knew he had not failed. They had learned the most important lesson of all. They had learned to love. The story spread across the galaxy like fire. News networks on 100 worlds told the tale of the human teacher and the cubs who saved her. They showed footage of the being led away in restraints. They interviewed station workers who had witnessed the aftermath. They spoke of diplomatic immunity shattered and justice served. But the story they told most often was the story of something impossible. A lone human woman, small and soft and without any weapons, had won the loyalty of young. And those young had risen up like warriors to protect her. It was unprecedented. It was unthinkable. It changed everything. 3 months after the incident, received an invitation to speak before the Galactic Council. She read the message 5 times before she believed it was real. The Galactic Council was the highest authority in known space. Representatives from every major species sat in its great chamber, debating laws and treaties that shaped the lives of trillions, and they wanted to hear from her. Was terrified. I cannot do this, she told the cubs. I am just a teacher. I do not know how to speak to politicians and diplomats. Crossed his arms. You spoke to us. We were worse than any politician. Nodded firmly. You will go and we will go with you. That is not a request. And so, 2 weeks later, stood at the entrance to the Grand Council chamber on the capital world of Nexus Prime. She wore a simple white dress, and her hands were shaking so badly she had to clasp them together. Behind her stood the cubs dressed in formal attire. Stood tallest, his eyes alert for any threat. Was at his side, ready to fight if needed. Was trying to look serious but kept glancing around at the impressive architecture with barely contained excitement. Was quiet as always, observing everything, and held his hand tightly, refusing to let go. Ambassador Wu stood behind them all, a mountain of silver fur and battle scars, pride shining in his golden eyes. You will do well, he told. I have never seen someone face fear and refuse to run. That is what you do. That is who you are. The doors opened and walked into the chamber. It was vast. Rows upon rows of seats rose up like a stadium, and in each seat sat an alien unlike any had seen. There were beings of light, beings of stone, beings with too many eyes or not enough limbs. The air smelled of 1,000 different worlds. At the center of the chamber was a single platform, a place where speakers stood to address the council. Walked to that platform alone. The cubs stayed at the edge of the chamber watching, supporting. A voice filled the room, translated into every language simultaneously. Park of Earth. You have been called before this council to give testimony regarding the events on Bright Horizon Station. You may speak. Looked out at the sea of alien faces. For a moment her voice failed her. She thought of running, of hiding, of pretending she had never come. Then she felt his presence at the edge of the room. She imagined his small paw in hers. She remembered everything the cubs had taught her. She began to speak. I did not do anything special, she said, and her voice echoed through the chamber. I know the stories say that I am brave or heroic, but that is not true. I am just a teacher. I came to space because I wanted to see new things and meet new people. I never expected to become famous." She paused, gathering her thoughts. "When I was assigned to teach the cubs, everyone warned me. They said the cubs were dangerous, unmanageable. They said I would fail like everyone else, and for a moment I believed them." She looked at the council members, meeting their eyes one by one. "But then I met them. 5 children who had lost their mother. 5 children who had been passed from tutor to tutor, abandoned again and again. 5 children who acted fierce because they were afraid of being hurt." Her voice grew stronger. "I did not tame them. I did not control them. I simply stayed. I listened to them. I learned what they needed and tried to give it to them. I treated them like they were worth my time and patience." She gestured toward the cubs at the edge of the chamber. "And they taught me things I never expected to learn. They taught me that strength is not about muscles or claws. They taught me that family is not about blood. They taught me that love can cross any distance, any difference, any barrier." A council member spoke, and being with shimmering wings. "The young planned and executed a military operation to rescue you. They were prepared to fight, perhaps to kill. Is this what humans teach?" Considered the question carefully. "I taught them to read. I taught them mathematics and history. I taught them that being strong does not mean hurting others." She paused. "But I did not teach them loyalty. I did not teach them love. They already had those things inside them. They just did not know they could use them to protect someone outside their species." She stepped forward on the platform. "If you want to know what humans teach, I will tell you. We teach that everyone deserves protection. We teach that the weak are not worthless. We teach that kindness is not weakness, and that patience can change more than violence." She looked at the cubs, and her eyes filled with tears. "We teach that family is not just blood. Family is choice. Family is the ones who stay when everyone else leaves." The chamber was silent. Then stood. He walked toward the platform, his footsteps echoing in the vast space. He stopped beside and turned to face the council. "My people have been warriors for 10,000 cycles," he said. His voice was strong, clear, without any fear. "We have conquered, we have destroyed, we are feared across the galaxy." He looked at. "But this human woman taught us something we never learned in battle. She taught us how to be gentle without being weak." He turned back to the council, and his eyes burned with conviction. "She did not fear us. She did not try to break us. She just loved us. And we learned that love is not softness. Love is the strongest weapon we have ever held." Could not stay still any longer. He ran across the chamber, ignoring all the rules, and wrapped himself around legs. The other cubs followed, one by one, until all 5 of them surrounded their teacher on the platform. The council watched in stunned silence. Finally, a voice spoke. It was an ancient being, a creature of light and energy, the oldest member of the council. "In all my centuries, I have never seen what I see today. Young, raised for war, standing in a hall of peace. A human woman, small and soft, loved by those who should be her predators." The ancient being's light pulsed with something that might have been emotion. "Perhaps we have misunderstood many things. Perhaps the galaxy has much to learn from humanity and from those who love them." The vote was unanimous. The teacher exchange program was expanded. Humanity was granted elevated status as cultural bridges, a new classification that recognized their ability to connect species. And Park was offered a permanent position, head educator for the Cross-Species Youth Initiative. She accepted. Ambassador Wu did one more thing. In a private ceremony witnessed only by his children and a few trusted warriors, he formally adopted into his pack. It was the first time in history that a human had been granted citizenship among their people. Wept as Wu marked her with the symbols of his house, wept with her, even had suspicious moisture in his eyes. 10 years passed. Stood before a new classroom on a new station, in a new sector of space. Her hair had some gray in it now, and there were lines around her eyes from years of smiling. But she still wore the same kind expression, still carried the same little plush cat in her pocket. Behind her, helping to organize the room, were five. They were no longer cubs. Was a towering warrior scholar, respected across the galaxy for both his strength and his wisdom. Led training programs for cross-species tactical teams. Had become a communications expert officially this time, though he still loved a good prank. Was a renowned analyst, advising governments on relations. And Sweet had grown tall and strong, but his heart was still as soft as ever. He spent his time baking treats for the students and making sure everyone felt welcome. The classroom filled with children of a dozen species. Some were scared. Some were angry. Some came from worlds that had taught them to hate anyone different. In the corner sat a tiny child. She was alone. No one sat near her. The other children whispered and pointed. The crimes of the syndicate were not forgotten, and the stigma fell on all, even the innocent. Watched the little girl curl into herself, trying to disappear. She walked over and knelt beside the child's desk. "Hello," she said gently. "I am teacher. What is your name?" The child looked up with yellow eyes full of fear. "You will not want me here. No one wants. We are bad." Reached out and took the child's small, scaled hand. "You are not bad," she said firmly. "You are a child. You deserve kindness and patience and someone who believes in you. That is what this classroom is for." Appeared beside them holding a plate of warm cookies. "I made these fresh this morning. Would you like one? They are really good. I promise I am not just saying that because I made them." The little looked at the cookie, then its warm smile, then its kind eyes. Slowly, hesitantly, she took the cookie. And in a galaxy that had believed for that some species were simply born dangerous, a human woman proved once again that the most powerful force in the universe was not fire or conquest. It was someone who refused to give up. The other children watched as led the girl to a seat in the middle of the room, among the others. They watched as introduced her to everyone, one by one. They watched as the fear in her yellow eyes slowly turned to wonder. And they began to understand. Later that evening, after the students had gone, the old pack gathered in the classroom and discussed the day's lessons, showed a new trick he had learned, swept the floor while humming a song from Earth. Sat at her desk, looking at a faded photograph. It was old, taken in those first weeks on Bright Horizon before everything changed. 5 young cubs surrounded a smiling human woman, their golden eyes uncertain, their fur bristling with confusion. They had come so far. Noticed her looking at the picture. He walked over and sat beside her, his massive form folding into a student's chair that creaked under his weight. "Do you ever regret it?" he asked quietly. "Leaving Earth, coming to space, choosing us?" Looked at him, at the cub who had become a warrior, at the child who had become a leader. "Never," she said. "Not for one moment, not for 1 second." She reached out and touched his fur, just as she had done when he was small. "You are my family," she said, "all of you, and I would choose you again and again across every star in every life." Leaned into her touch. For just a moment, he was not a warrior or a scholar or a leader. He was just a cub, loved by his mother. And the stars watched over them all.